Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And the live stream for the next meta ended just a little bit ago. Had to gather my thoughts on it and rant a little bit to myself and some people in Discord. But let's go over everything that it covered, because there is quite a bit of information to cover. And also, I'm going to make a separate video covering one thing specifically. But this is the theme for next meta. It's going to start on the 29th/30th, depending on where you live, and will end on the 26th/27th, again, depending on where you live and what time zone you exist in. But the opening theme, or the theme, is the opening of the country festival. And we can see the arena in the background, and let's just go right in. We've got Rimuru. Battle Unit Rimuru is the first summonable character. He is water. He is on the new Guardians of Peace category force, whatever you want to call it. Also on Shizu's Will, Octagram Demon Lord, and the Determination to Prosper meta. He is an AoE character. He does, let's see, where is it? 320% AoE damage and lowers physical resistance by 15%. And then his EX is 200% as is normal. His first skill, 80 points, expensive, is a guaranteed crits for all allies for one turn, and a 150% ult damage buff to himself. 150% to himself for 80 points for that and guaranteed crits. It's hefty and expensive. His second skill, 15 points. Not nearly as expensive. It converts one non-green orb to green, and then stacks 10% weakness strike on himself. So how in the Ogre's Pride team, Soe converted any two orbs that are not blue to blue, that's what Rimuru is doing, but only one orb, which is why it's 15 points. So we are in a green stacking meta. So we went from blue, 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 blue stack, the final ones, to now we're doing a green stacking water meta. Which is good if you have Overlord Shizu. It's very good if you have Idolmaster Shizuka. They're going to be very, very impactful to this team. So if you have them, great. And if you don't, you're shit out of luck. So this Rimuru, I mean, looks okay. Guaranteed crits isn't really anything new. 150% ult damage up is the most we've seen on just one character from one singular buff. And then the stacking weakness strike is cool. We know weakness strike is not the most powerful thing in the world. And then his convert is only one orb. I would have been okay if they had given him two orbs and made this a 25-point skill. Like, I would have been pretty okay with that. But let's move on to Protector Masayuki. As we kind of predicted, he is going to show up sooner than later, and he couldn't fit on the Ogre's Pride team, so they put him in here now. And his kit is the most confusing to me, because they didn't really explain it, and their Beatdown Battle Showcase didn't really do them any favors either. So looking at this, he gives Guardians of Peace allies a 60% damage buff against fire. So we are, again, a water meta going against fire. He gives physical allies a 25% attack and defense up, as most protectors do, physical or magic. And then he increases your skill cap by 50 points every turn after turn 1. So like every other traditional stacking protector now. Turn 1 is 100 SP cap, turn 2 is 150, then 2, 250, 3. And then on the nuke turn 8, you were technically at a 450, but you were previously capped at 4. His actual protection skill applies the inspired state on all physical allies for 2 turns. And what the inspired state does is increases allies' attack by 4% for every 3 attacks performed in a turn, which caps out at 40% attack buff in a singular turn. Now, I don't know how you're going to get a 40% increase, so it's 10 attacks in a turn. I don't know how you're going to do that when you can only send 6 orbs. Like, this is not a follow-up orb team. Currently, there are no multi-hits on green orbs. Potentially, there might be in the next 2 units that maybe come out. Like, you know how Commander Hinata has the multi-hit on blues on her convert? I mean, sure, yeah, okay. So currently, I don't know if there's a way to max out. Like, it could count, like, the Exalted Champion Hero, her AoE attacks. That might be. If you send 6 of those in a turn, that's 3 times 6. So maybe we're gonna have to really test this out for sure, because I don't know and they don't explain it very well. But the up to 40% attack in the turn does stack permanently. So in theory, you could go 40, 80, 120, 160 in theory, quote unquote. And then his second line down here is allows unlimited use of skills for 1 turn, which is just the Primal Demon Violet gimmick, where she allowed the Primal Demon team to use multiple skills in turn, multiple alt swaps, multiple buffs from Space Blanc. So Masayuki has that effect as well. And then, on top of that, he also resets the skill cost of your front line by 20 points, which, I mean, all combined is very, very good. But you'll notice that for a green stacking protector, there's something seriously missing off his kit, and that is the skill point gain on green orbs. So we've got the Inspired State shenanigans, we've got the unlimited use of skills for 1 turn, and we've got the skill reset alongside the skill cap increase just for Masayuki. So this is a pretty hefty kit. We still don't fully understand it, but he's doing a lot. So he's definitely not bad by any means. He's just a bit misunderstood currently. Moving on, we do have the free-to-play Geld. So that free-to-play teaser image that we saw a couple days ago for the giant butcher knife, that is definitely Geld with his cleaver. He's on the Guardians of Peace, Tempest Elite, Prosper, and the Flashback Emissary, the free-to-play unit team. His skills, he is an AoE ult for 290%, gives all allies guard power by 15%. His first skill, 25 points, converts 2 Guardian of Peace ally orbs to green. So another one of those very specific orb changes to where you need to be on Guardian of Peace, otherwise they do not get converted. And then the second part of his skill is a 10% gauge increase for greens, which is good. That's a good secondary buff for the orb change skill. His second skill, 50% increase for skill points to green orbs up to 500%. So you know how I was saying that Masayuki is missing the SP increase on greens? They gave it to Geld. So we have to use Geld's second skill multiple times to get that permanent increase in skill points, so we can continue to use more and more every single time. And then, at the second part of the skill, he's stacking 10% weakness resistance down on all enemies. Which, if you combine that with the weakness strike up that Rimuru is stacking, like, then you could do some pretty okay damage. And you are going to use this skill quite a bit, because you do want to cap this out at the 500%, or at least very close to it. So you'll get 4 or 5 stacks of this, and because Masayuki is skill resetting, it's going to be pretty cheap to do so as well. So Geld is a bit limited in his orb change, but his second skill is actually fairly generic. Like, any green team can do this. So he's going to be, I think, really good for people trying to use the old first anniversary of Eldora, who also does not give you extra skill points on greens, but he still resets, still gives you a magic buff, and still increases your cap. So I think Geld will be really good for him. Just note that this 50% to 500% increase will not combine with, like, Overlord Rimuru, because they're both doing a permanent increase to skill point gain. Rimuru is going to take priority, because he's stacking at 100% every time instead of 50. So you'll cap him out much faster, and you're not going to get 1,000 skill point percentage on greens from using both of them combined. And then finally, we have free-to-play Protector Frey looking fine in her evening gown. And she's actually a really, really good free-to-play unit. Like, really good. So she gives Guardians of Peace allies 30% damage to fire, as is tradition. She gives Guardians of Peace and Prosper allies the 12% attack buff. And then her protection skill, she permanently stacks 5% attack on everybody. Doesn't matter who you are. Just everybody gets 5% attack stat every single time you use her. She also increases your skill cap by 20 points, which again is good. And it's generically good. She doesn't really need a blue team or a green team specifically. You just get attack and you get a skill point to increase. And then she also has a skill reset, which is huge. I don't think there's a free-to-play protector that does a skill reset up until now. So this is going to open up a lot of windows for people wanting to use a green stacking team that don't have Dark Veldora, that don't have Overlord Rimuru, don't have this new Masayuki. She's going to be fairly good. She's not going to stack very quickly because she's only going at 20, but if you combine her alongside the free-to-play Geld, who's going to give you those skill points, you can make a decently good stacking green team with her and still get the skill reset and a little bit of a buff. So Frey, I think, is very, very good. Alright, so next we're going to take a look at the animations, so I'm going to mute myself and turn the volume up. They look pretty good, I'd say. They look pretty good.
お願いします。
ようこそテンペストへ。だけど招かれざる客にはお仕置きが必要だな。フェスティベ・バンバルト。楽しんでくれたかな。できることなら争いたくないんだ。頼む。僕に剣を抜かせないでくれ。ブレイブマジェスティ。これで納得してくれ。貴殿を戦士と認めよう。烈心客。行くぞ。フルメタルインパクト。良き戦いであった。
Alright, so yeah, I think the animation is solid. I really like Geld. I think they did a really good job for his free-to-play alt. But moving on, here's the speed team, the charge team, quote-unquote, and the defense team. Vengeance still going strong a year later. That's it for the new unit kits. There are a few other things to cover. So first off, the next login free Rimuru, the final Rimuru that we're going to get for free, is going to be the Dark 1.0 Rimuru. He's not that good. He was, I think, the final unit of the very first meta ever to release. He is an AoE crit character who's magic. He did get a skill fusion. It made him slightly better, but only slightly, and he wasn't really that good to begin with. So, I mean, if he's new to you, then congrats, you have a new character. If not, well, it is what it is. Then moving on, we have the new update to the amusement park area, the tourism district, where you can build up to the arena. It says chapters 11 through 14 for the tourism district missions will be released, and you get not EX, but normal 5-star shards from those. So that's good for newer players once they hit this, and they could use these to dupe up some of their older characters, mainly the big three. But we get the new Coliseum. They're adding Hinata to our Bond XP conversations to people available in town, so that's good. You can feed her, you can give her extra stats. Hinata does show up quite a bit as far as summonable characters, so it's good to get her stats higher and higher because she's going to be present a lot, right? Second anniversary / Wielder of Magic, the Commander Hinata. Like, we've had really good Hinatas lately, so keep that in mind. We have a skill fusion for the Space Masked Hero, the OG Masked Hero. And they buffed her crit skill. So currently it's a 55 point with a guaranteed crit for all allies and a 30% crit resistance down on all enemies. What they have done is they have added a condition, an extra condition to this skill. So it's still guaranteed crit and 30% down, but For every 100 points that you spend in a turn, you get another 10% crit resistance down, up to a maximum of 60% total. So if you use 300 skill points in one singular turn, like the nuke turn, then you will get another 30% crit resistance down, which brings it up to a 60% total resistance down, which is pretty good, right? Crit is a very powerful skill on teams that need it, and lowering the enemy's crit resistance by 60% is always going to be pretty impactful, but it is very conditional to spending a lot of points in one turn. So if you're not on a stacking team that has the capability of using 300 points, then you're never going to see any use of this skill fusion. But if you do have a stacking team, then you might, if you have enough points to even use on that turn for 300. Some people don't have those kind of big-time skills to get to 300, so we'll have to see how useful this is in practice. Most of the time nowadays, we use the hero in more of a burst setting to give us an extra turn for Jubilee normals where we need 4 turns instead of 3. So we're not going to see any use of this skill fusion in those scenarios. But I definitely will skill fuse her, and we will test out how impactful this damage buff is. Next up, we have updates to Heroes Jubilee, and that's going to start on the next season, which will be on the 16th/17th of September, so we know already what day Jubilee is coming. We have the new refreshed screen for rankings, which we already knew about. We have an updated image of like the main screen for Jubilee. Looks interesting. We again also have this screen, which we already saw previously from the Twitter teasers, is the new ranking. And then this says new effects for Jubilee, which scares me, because it's either they're adding like the Valor Cup conditions to Jubilee, or they're adding something else. They didn't really elaborate on that, so we're going to have to wait and see on the 16th to see exactly what they were talking about in regards to this final panel. But they've also made a few changes to Jubilee, because obviously it's getting a revamp, so we kind of need to know what they're revamping. So they're adding in additional rewards, for one. They're adding in group rankings, which is this first bullet right here. The second bullet is we will adjust the rewards that can be obtained from events, such as overall rankings and cumulative rewards. And in addition, you can obtain magic crystals as a reward for clearing each stage for the first time, which we technically already did, but they're going to increase it. But the third bullet down here is the one we really care about. Boss battles will now consume stamina instead of tickets. So that means that instead of having to spend stamina to get tickets at a random amount from normal battles and then go into boss battle, spend the tickets, and have to go back and farm normal battles for more tickets, you can just clear the normal battles and then spam all of your stamina into the boss battles, if you so choose to do. So this is really good for the sweaty tryhards, because it saves a whole butt ton of time, because we don't have to go back and grind for 1,000 tickets and then go into the boss battle, spend the 1,000 tickets, and go back and forth, back and forth. I think this is really good. Some people may not actually give a shit because they don't really do Jubilee that much, which is totally fair. This just makes it easier for the higher end people. And for the lower end people, you're not really going to see a difference anyways. Stamina is something that is a hot commodity for newer players, but this doesn't really change anything. You were still spending the stamina to go and replay the normal battles to get the tickets. It's just cutting a step out of the way. So there's not too much of a difference overall, unless they make boss battles cost a ridiculous amount of stamina. And then there's going to be an issue. But for now, again, we don't know. We'll find out in half a month. Well, 20 days? Nah, give or take, whatever. But on top of that, they have shown exactly what the ranking rewards are going to be. And I'm going to cover all of this information in a separate video, because there's way too much to talk about. But more crystal income from clearing the missions, new tickets, and then these are the group and overall rankings. Again, if you want to screenshot this page and translate it on your own, you can totally do so. I will make a separate video covering all this information later on today. And to wrap up the video, these are the characters being added to the Guardians of Peace force. I really am not overly hyped about this. Fire Shizu, Harmonizer Rimuru, Light Hinata, Water Alice. These 4-star, 3-star characters, they're not doing much for people. Commander Hinata is only buffing Commander. This new Rimuru is not on Commander. And she's blue orb changing. She has the multi-hit, though, so, I mean, we might be able to max out Masayuki's extra weird attack buff thing with her. I don't really know. Free-to-play Rieger. We've got pretty much the entire Prosper team except Lumi here. So, Rieger. Elmezia is not doing anything for this team, minus her ult resistance down. I wouldn't bring her. We've got the Light Hero, and we've got Wind Shizu and Tempest Elite Rimuru. Notice that the Space Hero, even though she got a skill fusion, is not on this team, which blows my mind. There's not a second page to this, though, so there's not like there's more characters. And if they do add them, well, that's just a happy little surprise. Overall, I'm not super impressed with this team. And then finally, we are going to get more stickers in, I think, the Koban shop in October. So we've got Isis, Milim, Veldora, and Rimuru, Soka, Guy, and then we've got a whole bunch of other Rimurus, and then a Raphael. So that's going to do it for today's live stream. We just had a little blurb about the new game that came out and their DLC. We've got a new Momiji figure coming in September, which is cool. But that's it for the live stream, guys. Let me know what you think of this new meta with Masayuki and Rimuru. I think it's an easy skip for the 3rd anniversary, because, again, the 3rd anniversary is coming up in October. People should honestly skip this meta. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That's it for me. Take it easy, and I will see you all later.